Welcome to a very special edition of the Celtic Way Sit Down. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle, and I'm joined by Connor Southwell, who's the chief Norwich City reporter for the Pinkin at CJ Southwell 1902. There you go on the Twitter or X handle. Connor, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's been a busy couple of days. I'll be glad when someone just gently pushes the window shut, I think, and puts the latch on. I'll be looking forward to some sleep and catching up on various things. So yeah, but all good here. How are you?
I'm good. Now the clue was in the introduction. The chief reporter for Norwich City, Pinkin. So you know we're going with that. Adam Idah looks certain to be unveiled as a Celtic player on loan for the rest of the season. 22-year-old Republic of Ireland internationalist. And Connor's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting here, guys, because he's going to tell us and give us the lowdown on Adam Idah. Lots of negativity, lots of stuff out on Twitter sphere. And yeah, I thought I would go direct to somebody who watches him and who can give us some kind of insight into the kind of player that Celtic will be getting when Adam Idah finally puts pen to paper, which should be announced at some point tomorrow. Connor's been working very hard on that story and he's kindly gave up his time to do this. So I say thank you first and foremost, Connor. Welcome to the Celtic Way Sit Down. Talk to us about Adam Idah.
Well, thanks for having me first and foremost. Look, I'm really happy for Adam Idah actually, because I think the last few years have been really been difficult for him in a sense. He's had a lot of pressure, a lot of expectation on his shoulders. It's been difficult because he has, for large periods of it, been behind someone that you guys know very well, Teemu Pukki at Norwich. And Teemu Pukki, for context, is Norwich City's fourth, I think, best ever goal scorer. Someone who is an absolute legend at the football club and was prolific. I know he had a very different experience in Scotland with you guys, but so a lot of that period, actually, Adam Idah has kind of spent playing second, sometimes even third fiddle to Teemu Pukki. So his game time has been really limited. So I know there's been lots of people talking about the kind of amount of games he's played and goal to game ratios. I would say don't be deceived by that, because he's actually, relative to his age, not played an awful lot of football at all actually in the last few years. I think basically 2/3 of his time at Norwich has been spent as a substitute. He's not far off being Norwich City's most substituted in player ever. So I think he's second or third in the list. So that gives you a rough idea of where he's been. But he's quite. I think so. That you said negativity. I think the reason there is, and I'll use the word frustration from a Norwich perspective. I think there's a lot of frustration around Adam Idah because people have watched him for years and they see a lad who's big, who's strong, who's capable, who's a good finisher, who scored goals in the youth ranks. And he has, maybe for limited game time, maybe because he hasn't quite had a run in the team, maybe sometimes because of his own form, hasn't ever quite been able to take that step and be the prolific goal scorer that maybe people felt he could be. And I think there's probably a lot of frustration around that because there's a lad there who's an Irish international, still incredibly young, and has all the tools there, I think, to be a very capable striker at a very good level. He just needs time, bit of love, bit of confidence, and I think he can achieve it. But he needs to obviously take that step as well, and that's on him. So, yeah, I think everyone's kind of hoping that this is an opportunity, and Adam's really pushed for a loan away in the last month or so to get out and playing football. He's 23 next month. He needs to play a lot more than he has been. And I think a lot of Norwich fans will be really intrigued to see how he gets on.
I tell you what, you mentioned a word there. He needs to be loved. If Adam Idah can bring that finishing quality that you say, he will get loved. He will get adulation like he has never, ever received in his career, and he's never likely to get anywhere. So he's got that to look forward to if he can turn it on for Celtic. And you're saying he's big and athletic, and he is a physical player, isn't he? He's a big guy, and he'll be a handful for Scottish defences. And I think it's a challenge that the player himself might relish. If he's pushed for this move, then it's clearly something that interests him, isn't it?
Yeah, he's powerful, really powerful. I wouldn't say he's lightning quick, but he's not slow. He's quick enough. I think he's certainly quick enough to get away from defenders. But it's his size, it's his presence, it's almost that athletic ability. I don't think he's quite used it as well as he could have done at Norwich at points, and he hasn't quite engaged with defenders and made life difficult for them in the way that he could with his physical profile, which I think is why, again, I go back to that word of frustration. If you can get that out of him, I think there really is there a player to be molded. I don't think he's technically the best. He's not someone who wants to play outside the area and go and link play tremendously. He wants to stretch, he wants to get in behind, he wants to create those 1v1 situations, and when he does that, he's very good and very capable. And actually, you only need to look at some of the goals he scored this season for Norwich. I'd actually maybe look at the Bristol City one in the last minute, which I'm sure Celtic fans have looked. But really, just an aimless ball over the top that he chased down, put a load of pressure on a defender, won it, ran through, still had a lot to do, and then slotted it past the goalkeeper in stoppage time to get Norwich a win from absolutely nowhere. And that's the type of player that I think Norwich fans have wanted to see a lot more of. And certainly on the confidence point, you're right. I remember speaking to him after Norwich beat Huddersfield 4-0 earlier on in the season, and he came on that day for Josh Sargent after he got injured, and for kind of a period between when he came on to half time, wasn't really in the game, struggled. And then there was a moment in the second half where he just turned his man, got down the line, put a cross in, and John Rowe pokes it home. And after that, looked completely transformed. And so I think this idea of a confidence player sometimes can be linked to, is he scoring goals or not? But actually, I think for Adam Idah, he almost needs something to happen within games to then grow, to then be confident. So whether that's completing a pass, whether that's putting a cross in, whether that's beating a man, and feels to me like he needs that kind of push to get himself some confidence. So you're right, he'll need the love and support of the Celtic fans, which I'm sure he will get, absolutely. But he needs those moments within games, and actually in a team that is probably going to be a bit, well, certainly going to be a lot more dominant than Norwich City have been in the Championship this season, and obviously more chances that come with that. I think he'll be absolutely fine.
And that's the thing, Connor. He will get chances to score goals, providing he plays. I mean, he's been brought in to provide competition for Kyogo Furuhashi and Oh Hyun-gyu, who are current strikers at Celtic Park, O's away on Asian Cup duty. So he's got a chance when he comes in to possibly hit the ground running, because at this minute in time, Kyogo Furuhashi is off the boil slightly. And, so something coming in a bit fresh might be what Brendan Rodgers is looking for, and he could fit the bill. Now, Chris Sutton, former Norwich and Celtic striker, Celtic legend, let's call him, because he is. And he wrote in a column in Your Pinkin, didn't he? And he was saying that he's not sure if he was better than O or an improvement on O. And that's where a lot of the negativity is probably stemmed from, because a lot of Celtic supporters place a lot of faith in storing what Chris Sutton says. So when he's saying these things, he's maybe not filled them with great hope. But Connor, I don't know about you, but I'm a guy who will judge a player when I see them in the flesh and with my own eyes. And, you can say what you want about them, but until you actually see them, and it's going to be a new challenge for him. So he's going to be up for it. You'll see a different Adam Idah, I would have thought, to the one that you've possibly seen this season.
Yeah, I think that's a completely fair comment. And I think there's actually certainly from his perspective now, a desire to really go out and prove himself. And I know Chris well, I know you do as well, and he's in a much more educated and better place to speak about it in relation to current Celtic strikers than me. I can't offer much insight on that, but what I would say is, and I've always got this sense from Chris, and I'm sure he will correct me if I'm wrong, but from every time I've spoken to Chris about Adam Idah, I get the sense that he really likes him. And again, it comes back to this point of, I think there's a frustration with him, because you look at him and he is someone that should be capable, that should be able to apply themselves, that should be able to score goals consistently. And who knows, he may go and get regular football at Celtic and prove himself to be that. The issue is, I guess, from Celtic's perspective, is he isn't that yet, and he's a little bit of a project, and he's someone that needs a little bit of development. Is that, and again, it's one more for you guys to answer. I'm asking it rhetorically, but is that kind of where Celtic are? Is that what Celtic need at this moment in time? That's not to say, of course, that he doesn't go in, he gets the confidence, he feels the love of the supporters, he's really relishing the opportunity, he scores a goal, and suddenly he kicks on and becomes a prolific goal scorer, because I don't think it will take a lot. I don't think there needs to be a lot done with him to make him that. But there is work that does need to be done with him, and I think the issue that he's had at Norwich really is probably consistency, and also the fact that, as I said, he's had limited time on the pitch to really do stuff. And when you're coming on as a sub for 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, it is incredibly hard to impact games. And his development has taken a hit because of that. And you compare him with someone like Josh Sargent. So similar ages. I think Sargent's a little bit older. But actually, in those periods where Sargent was behind Teemu Pukki as well, he was playing as a winger. He wasn't necessarily particularly happy about it. It wasn't where Norwich got the best out of him. But even though he wasn't playing up front, he was still playing. And so he was still developing. Adam Idah hasn't really had that. He's had to, because Norwich have found it really difficult to find strikers to come in and basically sit on the bench for in reserve of Teemu Pukki. It's a very difficult thing to recruit for. So often that's been Adam Idah's role. And the issue for me, I think, and a lot of Norwich fans, is that they weren't able to get him out on loan younger, and they weren't able to do that at a point in his career where it would have been beneficial, maybe lower in the English pyramid. And actually, there was a period. So his senior debut for Norwich was in the FA Cup against Preston. He came on, scored an incredible hat trick, really. And in the background, prior to that, there was this loan move with Doncaster playing out, and he was going to go and join Doncaster. And then he scores a hat trick, and suddenly Daniel Farke's going, yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to let him out. And then he had to start. Norwich had a few injuries at the time, and he had to start against Manchester United at Old Trafford a week or 2 weeks later. And from there, he's obviously not been able to go out on loan because Pukki's been scoring goals and whatnot. So he's been caught a little bit in a halfway house, I think. And as I said, he's not really, even though he's 22. In terms of his game time, he's more 18, 19 in terms of the minutes that he's played. And I think this is where I think people need to look at him. So there is obviously an ability for him. There's a lot of catching up to do, admittedly, and there's a lot of stuff that he does need to do. But I think I would say, don't judge him on the goals to game record that he's achieved at Norwich City, because actually you need to delve deeper. I think he's I looked at one point this season, he started about 20 championship games for Norwich City. So he's not started a lot of games. Compared to players his age. So I think from Celtic's perspective, it is probably a bit of a punt in terms of what he signing him based on what he could be, which is why I'd imagine this is a loan rather than anything else. But I think, as I said a few times, if you can get it right with him, I really think there's a player there and a striker there that could be very effective.
What he will get is the arm round the shoulder from Brendan Rodgers, and also the Brendan Rodgers treatment where he can polish up rough diamonds, basically, and make players better. I think that's Brendan Rodgers' fault as a manager, and this is clearly somebody who he sees that he can sprinkle that magic dust on, and maybe this is the challenge that he needs to kickstart his career and get him back on track again. And if he can get it right at Celtic, he can go on. And who knows, Celtic might want to make the deal permanent at the end of this, because I know in the deal that at this moment in time there's no option to buy, is there, at this moment in time in the deal?
Yeah, that's right. And I think what you say about Brendan Rodgers is spot on as well, because it's probably what he's needed, a coach that's going to put their arm around him and say, do you know what, you'll do for me and I'll make you better. And I think that's probably what he's needed for a period of time. I think he's not always seen eye to eye with David Wagner, from kind of noises that you hear, and maybe not always felt particularly loved at Norwich City. And that's very difficult, because when you're behind someone like Teemu Pukki, who scored at the rate that he did for Norwich City, if you're a striker, I mean, you can't then go and knock on the manager's door and say, why am I not playing, when you've got a guy ahead of you who's scoring, in double figures in the Premier League for two very, very bad Norwich sides at that level. And then when you come down, he's scoring 20 plus goals. It's an impossible kind of situation that you're in. So I think he does need that. I think, as I said, it comes back to, I think he just needs a bit of love. I think there's a player there who just wants an arm around him, just wants to be told that he's half decent, and wants a little bit of investment in terms of coaching time, and someone who can really foresee a situation where he can get better. And you're right, if it's a bit of in many ways a bit of a free hit for all parties, because if Adam Idah goes to Scotland, scores loads of goals, then it's up to him, really, isn't it? He's got to make himself or put himself in a position where it becomes very difficult that Celtic don't want to sign him, or don't not want to sign him. Sorry.
Yes.
And I think all parties will sit down and review it in the summer. And if it's been a success for Adam and it's been a success for Celtic, then I think Norwich will be very happy, and I think there'll be a deal to be done there as well. So, I think for Adam, it's obviously an opportunity to go and essentially put himself in the shop window. And as we said, it's an opportunity to go and play and go and prove himself at an absolutely massive football club by all accounts, competing, you know, for trophies and competing at the very top of the Scottish game. So I just think everyone should view it really as an opportunity and as a bit of a free hit. If it doesn't work, no problem. He'll come back to Norwich and his future will take care of itself. But if he can get it right, and Celtic can get it right, then obviously there's a young talent there that I think will do very well.
He's certainly hoping to be a big noise. Somebody making a big noise on my dogs, so hopefully that's not spoiling your enjoyment or your hearing, guys. But there you go. Now, yes, indeed. Now, Connor, what would you say is his best attribute? I know he's big and he's powerful. He's 6'3", I think he is, isn't he? Yeah. Is he? You touched on his finishing ability, and the fact that he chased the boy down at Bristol City and then had a lot to do and scored. So, is that what the Celtic fans can expect? A guy like that, given an extended run in the team, who will chase things down and who has got some composure and finishing ability?
Yeah, I would say so. I think his power as well. I think that's really exciting, particularly in transition. I think it gives the team that he's playing for a real opportunity to get up the pitch. He's very good at that. He's very good at stretching defenses, and like you say, when he is in those opportunities, he does have a knack of finding the net. And actually, as we sit here today, he's Norwich City's second top goal scorer this season behind John Rowe with 7 goals. Sargent's been out for a long period of time, so that statistic's a little bit skewed, but more goals than Ashley Barnes, more goals than Sargent, as I said, more goals than Gabriel Sara, who's taken a lot of acclaim, and I think he's scored 6 of 7 off the bench. So it goes to show that that's kind of been the role that he's had. So there is a goal scorer in there, and he scored goals at youth level as well. He had a nice partnership with a young lad called Anthony Spiro, who at Norwich, who's no longer in the game, and he's fallen out of it a little bit. But those two were renowned in the academy for having a really good partnership and kind of played off each other quite a lot. And yeah, I think there's a lot there to admire. So yeah, I think that's what I would say. And actually, there's almost a rawness about him, but not in a bad sense, but in a quite an excitement. It's the rough diamond, I think, and that maybe lends itself to be, he's a little bit ragged around the edges. He's a little bit unpredictable at points, but actually that can be very difficult for defenders. So yeah, his power, his finishing, and I would say his sort of rawness as well. I think all of those are quite interesting and make for an interesting striker.
He was very prolific at youth level, so if he can recapture any of that kind of goal-scoring touch at a club like Celtic, he'll end up being adored. And that's just the way it goes at a club like Celtic, and he play in front of 60,000 every other week. That can do wonders for a footballer's confidence when you look at it. It's a wonderful arena. You've been there. Yeah. Celtic played them in a friendly a couple of years ago. So the stadium, you know exactly what he's going to run out into. And I think most footballers, as a challenge, will say, I fancy a piece of this. Won't they, Connor? Yeah,
absolutely. And I hope he takes it and adopts it all in the right way. He's had some, by his own admission, he's had some difficulty when he was at Norwich with social media and criticism and stuff like that. And obviously he was younger then, and maybe he's in a better position now. And I hope he's in a better position now, and he's learned from those experiences to go up and be able to handle playing for Celtic and everything that involves in the right way. I think going up there can kind of make or break you as a player to an extent. And you're right, you go up there and get things right, and you're adored, and it's almost like deity, aren't you? Almost like deity if you go up there and do well. But conversely, you go up there and struggle, and it can be very difficult for any player. And I won't mention it too much, but I remember Russell Martin going to the blue side of Glasgow and having a really difficult time and kind of encountering the other side of that. So yeah, you have to embrace it. You have to embrace it, and you have to be willing to walk into that, and you have to have a confidence about you, broad shoulders to affect it positively and almost manifest it, I think. And
yes,
that's where I hope that he has learned his lessons from Norwich, because if he hasn't, then he's, as Chris wrote in his column today, he will realise quite quickly what he's got himself into.
Yeah, I mean, I think he will get the backing of the Celtic supporters. They will, from the moment he comes in, they'll wish him well, and they'll want to see him do well. They'll will him to do well. And I think, and it will be tinged with disappointment, because I think Celtic supporters saw the club probably signing a lot more in the January transfer window because the top table people at the AGM bumped their gums about having so much money in the bank, something like 72 million, and Celtic have spent nowhere near anything like that. They haven't even made a dent in it at all. So I think the expectation was maybe higher than Adam Idah, but again, I go back to it. I think the Celtic supporters need to wait and see for themselves what he will bring to the table. You've said there, cracking insight into what he could bring, and I think like any striker, just score goals, isn't it? It sounds so simple, doesn't it? But if they just score goals, he will end up a hero come May, and I think he'll enjoy the fact that he's chasing silverware. He'll get a chance to win a couple of medals. Celtic are chasing a Scottish Premiership and Scottish Cup double, the two domestic trophies that are available to them this season. They're in a title race with Rangers, and he might get the chance to experience, the Glasgow Derby for himself, tick that off, and on his kind of boxes of achievements. So there's a lot to look forward to, Connor, for Adam Idah, and probably why this challenge excited him.
Yeah, he's so hungry. He's so hungry, I think, for it, and to the extent where I think he's almost pushed to leave Norwich City because he wants to go out and play. He wants to go out and prove himself, and obviously you guys will be familiar with now. I mean, he was very keen and had options in Italy and wanted to explore those just for a completely different kind of experience and to get out almost of English football and again try and prove himself, try and experience different culture. And Glasgow and Norwich, I'm sure, are different cultures in many respects, but it's a new experience, I think, for him to go and prove himself. And actually from a Celtic fan perspective, I know on the surface of it, and we've spoken about goal records and all this, but I mean it is for me kind of a low risk, high reward signing, because if he doesn't, as I said, if he doesn't get it right and he doesn't score goals and all of those kind of things that we saw at Norwich and the frustrations that he's had here translate to Celtic, then at the end of the day, everyone will shake hands, he'll pack his bags and he'll come back to Norwich in the summer, and he's Norwich's problem, not problem, but he's not Celtic's issue to kind of deal with from there. If he does well, kicks on, as I said, you've got a striker there who's young, who has really good attributes, and who I think, Norwich gave him a 5-year deal 11 months ago, which seems bonkers now that we're in this situation, given that was the case. But for me, I said when he signed that, it won't take a lot for that to look like very good business very quickly. And I think this is similar. I don't think it will take a lot for Adam Idah on loan to look like a very astute business from Celtic. But it's up to him, and it's up to him getting his mindset right and taking the opportunities that he's given. That's been perhaps a little bit of a criticism at Norwich, that he hasn't quite been able to take the opportunities when they've arisen here. As you said, score goals and everything's okay, isn't it? So that's the challenge for him.
Of course, yeah.
He's so determined, I think, and I hope he utilises that in the right way.
Yeah, because you spoke off here and you said you are a huge Norwich City fan, so you have his vested interests at heart and you want to see him do well. And it's an interesting move for him at this juncture in his career, isn't it? As you say, it could be the kind of make or break time in terms of his career, because he's maybe reached a particular crossroads. But if he's going to resurrect his career, what a place to do it in, Celtic Park.
Yeah, and that's it, and that's kind of what he does need. Not resurrect it. I don't think we're quite there yet, but you're right. It is make or break. If he wants to play at this level on these type of stages in old firm derbies, in Champions League games and whatnot, then he needs to go and prove that he can do it, and prove people wrong, prove David Wagner wrong, prove Norwich City wrong, prove Norwich fans wrong, prove people who have doubted him wrong for various reasons. You've got a player there who was up front for Ireland against the Netherlands not so long ago in I think European qualifier, and gave Virgil van Dijk a real runaround. So he has got the capability there, and again it comes back to my initial point of that's why there's so much frustration around him from a Norwich perspective, because there's a player there who probably should have done a lot more than he has done at the club. There's lots of mitigation as to why he hasn't, but now he needs to go. Now he needs to go and prove it that he can, and there'll be no one happier for him, I think, than the Norwich City fans if he can go up north of the border, score loads of goals, and maybe get himself a decent move from there. And
that's the crux of it, isn't it? The performances like you touched upon there, the Ireland one against Holland, they've been sporadic in his career so far, haven't they? He now needs to get a string and a succession of them and play consecutive games and play like that if he can.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're right. They have been sporadic, but the fact they've been there, I think, is proof that he can achieve them.
They exist.
His best run at Norwich came actually under Dean Smith, and not many Norwich players' best spell came under Dean Smith in the Premier League between about January and February. They had a win over Everton, and he was inspired that day. And then there was a performance at Watford. The order is all jumbled up. It might have been Watford before Everton or whatever, but. There was a run of 3 or 4 games where he looked electric, and it was like, right, here we go. He's going to do it now. And then he got injured and sort of missed the rest of the season, and then wasn't quite able to recapture him. So again, this fuels that frustration that I speak about of his period at Norwich. Yeah. We've seen it. We've seen that he can do it. It just needs unlocking, I think, and that probably goes back to the point about Brendan Rodgers. If Brendan Rodgers can find a way to extract that level of performance out of him, I'd have absolutely no doubt at all that he'd go to Celtic and not just score goals, but play really, really well.
And that's the positive thing I've taken from what you've said throughout this broadcast, Connor, that there's a player there and a manager like Brendan Rodgers can unearth that. And I think that's what a lot of the Celtic supporters watching this will take from this, that positive, that, listen, there's the raw material there, isn't there? As you've pointed out, he's big, he's a physical presence, he can score goals. Let's do that. Let's do it at a decent level and take your career on to the next stage and advance it to where you want it to go. He is now in control of his own destiny in that situation, isn't he?
Yeah, completely. And as I said, it's now up to him. Go on, Adam. Ball's in your court. You wanted this. You wanted to leave Norwich City. You wanted to go and play more games. Go and prove you can do it, and go and prove you can do it at a club like Celtic. And if he can do it at a club like Celtic, then he'll find so many more doors open for him, whether that's obviously a permanent return in the summer, which I think has to be his immediate aim. And he obviously pushed to go to Celtic as soon as that interest arose. And you can understand why, with the size of the club and everything that brings in a positive sense. And, Irish heritage as well and all of the connections there. It's up to him. It's a real opportunity for him. I think it's a fantastic move that he's been able to get, particularly much better, in my view, for him to go to Celtic than perhaps it would have been to Serie A in a team that wouldn't have produced much opportunities and are in a relegation scrap. So everything's there for him. Everything's set up for him. In many ways, it kind of feels like, you know what, Adam, no excuses now. No excuses. Go and do it. Go up there, go score goals and go and prove what you can do. Because as I've said throughout this chat and as people are probably sensing, we've seen it in flashes. We now need to see it more consistently from him. And if he can do that, then there's a real player there.
And if he does it consistently at Celtic, I worry for you maybe getting him back, Connor, because I think they might try some kind of option to purchase him if he can become prolific over the next few months and help Celtic win a league and a Scottish Cup double.
Yeah, but that's the benefit for Norwich. If he can go and do it at Celtic, now there's not a buy option in this deal, then obviously you drive his price up, don't you? And as I said, I don't think it takes a lot for that 5-year contract to suddenly look quite astute in the same way it won't take a lot for that Celtic move to look quite astute. So yeah, it's in Norwich's interest for him to go up there and score goals. Obviously, Norwich are in the process of signing a striker as well. Norwich obviously will be hoping that he can score goals, and that probably makes the process a lot easier if Adam Idah does well, to be honest.
Listen, Connor, I've really enjoyed that. I hope Celtic supporters have enjoyed that as well. Valuable insight into Adam Idah. Now the proof's in the pudding. I want to see him in the flesh, and when he turns up tomorrow and does his signs on the dotted line, and obviously will do his press stuff and all that, so get another insight into the player himself and why he wanted to come. But yeah, I wish him well, as you do, Connor. I'm sure you wish him well, and you hope to get him back something approaching the finished article, I would have thought.
Yeah, I hope so. That'd be lovely. If it would cap off a really nice Norwich City story if he could do that.
Thank you for your time, Connor. Thanks for joining us. It's been a Celtic Way sit down with Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle, with Connor Southwell at CJ Southwell 1902. You can catch Connor there. He's a chief football reporter for Norwich City at the Pinkin. So there you go. And just before you go, if you like what we do in the YouTube videos, subscribe to the channel and also subscribe to the website, the Celtic Way website. It costs you £4 for 4 months for access to everything that we write on the web, or £18 for a yearly subscription. and you can find us at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Connor, thanks very much. Really appreciate it. Hope the noise from the dogs didn't put you off, sir. Didn't appear to put you off.
No, I think you set mine off at one point, so that's all good. It's all good. No, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to come on, and obviously I look forward to seeing how Adam gets on up there.
Yeah, we'll reconvene before the end of the season. We'll do a progress report, But thanks a lot. Appreciate your time, sir. Take it easy.
Top man. Thank you, Angie.